Okay, welcome everyone. I hope everyone in the overflow room can also hear me. Welcome to Durham University and to the School of Government and International Affairs. My name is Dr. Patrick Kuhn. I'm an associate professor in comparative politics at the School of Government and International Affairs, and I'm also the director of education, which means I'm in charge of all of the undergraduate educational programs and the postgraduate programs and how they are run and done in the school, which is the reason I'm giving the talk. With me is Max, one of our final year students in the International Relations and Politics program, who will speak to you about the student view and answer questions that I can't answer because I don't know. Obviously, that information will be PG. If you want to know the adult version of what goes on in the colleges, you'll have to ask Max outside after the talk. I can't. I shouldn't know. Good. So what will I be covering? I'll be talking about the student experience and why studying at Durham and studying at the School of Government and International Affairs is something really exciting and worth doing. I'll talk about our programs, what the entry requirements are. I'll talk about the structures and how they work, what the year abroad and placement scheme does and how it works within our programs. I'll speak about what kind of careers are open and our students have pursued in the past, etc. And then there'll be input from Max, and then there'll be a bunch of questions that you can ask. But I want to make this interactive, so if you have questions while I'm talking, you should just feel free to raise your hand and I'll answer them. The people in the overview room, I can't see your hand, so you'll have to be patient until the end. But do interrupt me if you want to ask something or have a clarification question. So, the reason why you're probably here at Durham is it's a world-class academic institution. We have colleges, as most of you will also know. So studying at Durham involves a collegiate experience. It gives you a home away from home. And it kind of belongs to our bubble concept, right? So, you have the department bubble of which you're a member. You have the college bubble of which you're a member. In the department, you'll have the bubble of people on your course that you're a member of, and in the course you'll have people that you're teaching with, and in your seminar groups. So while there are lots of students, it never really feels like there are 20,000 students, right? Because you will be interacting with a bunch of different smaller groups, etc., which is a nice kind of setting. There are lots of extracurricular activities besides your studies. Lots of them happen in the colleges and in societies. Max will be able to talk to that. But we also have a great sports complex. In fact, we're the 2023 Sports University of the Year. If you haven't made your trip to Maiden Castle or you're driving past it on the way home, do have a stop, have a look at the sports facilities. They have everything from, fencing, rowing, land hockey, football, cricket, rugby, whatever kind of sport you're into. And if you don't want to do professional sport within the Team Durham, then there's lots of sports societies within the colleges which are just for fun. The city of Durham is a nice city. It's a real university city in the sense that the university is the largest employer in town. It is a really dominant institution throughout the city, right? The castle and the cathedral are linked to the university. Lots of the city colleges on the Bailey belong to the university. As someone that lives near the city, etc., I do notice it when students are in town, right? This region has 45,000 citizens, the broader region. The university has about 22,000 students, so the average age drops, and I feel quite old when students are around. And then when you leave over the summer, I get to take all advantage of all the great meal deals that restaurants need to do, etc., in order to keep afloat over the summer, and I feel very young again until the fall. So why come to the School of Government and International Affairs? We, as a department ourselves, are one of the top 100 politics departments in the world. We're 7th within the UK league tables. These things always have to be taken a bit with a grain of salt, etc. But what I personally am most proud of is our graduate employability statistics. All of our students, or the vast majority of our students, get a well-paid employment or go into further study 6 months of their degree. So what are our aims? This is pretty standard. As you will go to other universities, they will tell you the same thing. We'll offer high-quality and progressive study routes through politics and international relations, high-quality research-led teaching components. We like to be chosen as a department for other studies and other students in other departments to study with us. We have a teaching and assessment system that ensures that students acquire the appropriate knowledge and skills and makes them ready for the job market and prepares them for future studies, etc. Now, those are the standard things you'll hear everywhere. What does that actually mean in practice in Durham? So the way we do teaching and learning is very student-centered, in the sense that we involve our students in the revision, development of our curriculum. There's a student staff consultative committee of which students from every year, student representatives sit on. We explain things we're changing, we seek feedback from them, etc. We have module evaluation questionnaires that students fill out, that we have an annual learning and teaching review every year where we review what the outcome is, how it has changed from last year, what that might mean, what we might need to shore up, what we need to improve, what we need to change. And we have in-class termly feedback. So they're institutionalized ways how students can give us feedback, but there are also lots of informal ways. So on Mondays, we have a coffee hour from 11 to 12:30 where most of staff will be around to have a cup of coffee and students can drop in and have a chat about things that are going on. We also try to inspire our students. So we have a student staff seminar series. This is an image of the seminar series that we had in February or March. Students get to propose speaker names. Staff propose speaker names. We then vote on the speaker names and we do our best to try to get the 3 highest voted speakers to come to Durham. Generally, they're quite well-known figures. They will give a talk or there'll be a moderated discussion, and then there will be a networking event afterwards over some drinks and nibbles, etc., which students can attend. Lots of our research centers do speaker series where they bring in speakers that are more focused on the specific areas of their research. And then staff do research presentation, as we are a university that is a research university, and so all of our staff members are active researchers as well. You will always get an email from us on Friday listing all the events that happen in the school for the next week, so that you are informed and can choose where to participate. And there's obviously ways to input what you would like us to put on and what you would like to see more of, etc., through your lectures. We also are student-centered in the sense that we want to train you to become independent thinkers and independent learners. So that will be a big shift from secondary school to university, where it will be self-led and you will have to act as independent learners. Nobody will check on you whether you've done your work, etc. We will have assessments, as every degree program has, and when you pass them, you pass them, and when you fail them, you fail them, right? So that's the checking that goes on as part of it, but that's as much as they are. We are always here to help. You will always get every support that you need, but you need to reach out. We won't come and search you in the colleges. That's the difference between school and university, or one of the differences. Our teaching is research-led, informed, and based. So what does that mean? You could think of teaching as whether you emphasize the content that was produced by the research or whether you emphasize the process of researching, right? And this can be either very teacher-focused or it can be very student-focused, right? And that gives rise to these different orientations in how we teach. And in year 1, it will be mostly research-led, research-oriented, and some research-tutored teaching. That means we will teach you the state of research, what is known about a certain topic. We will also teach you how these methods work to create knowledge. Yes? Yes, you can take photos of whatever you want. Right, so we'll teach you not only like what the content is, but also like what the methods are that produce the research, and that will inform to what extent we should believe the content, how much we value the content, etc. And we will have you write and discuss essays and papers, right? And in the second year, we move more towards kind of research tutoring and research orientation. And in the third year with the dissertation, it will be really research based, where you will do your own research on a question of your choosing, together with a member of staff that will supervise your research. Right? So that's our research pedagogy. Come in. There's some seats over there and there. You can have a seat. So, we're very inclusive and try to kind of gear our teaching towards employment and further study. So we understand that students come to us with a variety of backgrounds and with a variety of experience. Some students come with certain disabilities. The university has a great student support system where we get informed about what challenges are, and we adapt our teaching and learning in order to kind of address these challenges. We have a student peer mentoring program, so when you start with us, you will have the option, you're not forced to, but you'll have the option to be assigned to a mentor in your second or third year student that will be able to help you navigate the university and what certain things mean. If you are a first generation scholar, that is, you're coming from someone that your parents have not been to university before, then there's a first generation scholars group which will help you navigate some of the hidden curriculum that university life brings with it. We are an Athena Swan chartered department. Actually, we were the first politics and IR department to get the Bronze Award in 2016. And since 2022, we hold the Silver Award. You will find that our lectures are very gender balanced at the assistant professor and associate professor level, and we're working very hard to get the gender balance at the professorial level as well. We decolonize the curriculum, which means we don't just teach you what is known and what is out there, but also question why we don't hear certain voices in the research that we see, right? And that actually has become quite important with regard to generative AI, right? So the large language models that you might know under the name of ChatGPT draw on things that are written on the internet, right? But what is on the internet is not a representation of people's opinions and views throughout the world. It is of a very select group of people, mostly Western-oriented, rich, often male, and often white, right? So, what does that mean when these tools kind of give you answers? Is that really an answer that is fully reflective of what is known about something, or is that only a particular view? Right? And why do we not have these other views? And where could we get some insight to these other views? We have a very practice and future-oriented teaching and learning. So yes, there will be the one odd other essay, but there's lots of other writing assignments. We will ask you to write blog posts, policy briefs. We will ask you to write speeches. We will also ask you to do podcasts or videos. Presentations. We'll ask you to work individually, but we'll also ask you to work in groups, right? And all of those assessment forms are geared towards providing authentic assessments that are linked to things that you might have to do in the real world, right? So it's not just the standard essay every year, 6 essays for every module, etc. We are, unlike other universities in the sector, having a very open approach to generative AI. Rather than just banning it outright or trying to outgun it in a kind of police catch patrol type of way, we've chosen to educate, embrace, and enhance our teaching and learning using these tools. There will be very clear guidance on how you are able to use them and how you will need to be transparent about when you've used them, etc. But we want our students to use them. When you leave university in 4 years' time, for most of you, right, the world will use these technologies. It does you no good if you leave and you are able to write a good essay, handwritten in a black robe, in a room, invigilated by a person. Right? That's not how the world actually works. Right? So learning what the benefits, costs, limitations are of these tools, and focusing the education on the unique human capabilities, which is the added value that you bring for the employer, is what we should be doing. right? So there's lots of benefits in these tools and lots of things that you can now do that you couldn't do before. Happy to talk about it in more detail, but I don't want to bore everyone on this. But just pointing out that by the time you will be coming, right, our degree programs, as they're now going through these revisions, will focus on things that these tools aren't great at, which is critical reflection, analysis, complex, contextualized, evaluative judgments, etc. Right? These are the skills that we will highlight, and being a good, competent writer that can write a decent English essay in 2 hours is not a skill that is going to get you a job in 4 years' time. So, what do our programs look like? We have 3 single honor programs. The politics program, the IR program, and the politics and IR program. They're all 3 years or 4 years if you take a year abroad placement year, which I'll talk about later. The typical offers are 3 A-level courses. The typical IB offer is 37. All of these programs and all of the other programs I'll show you about come with a study abroad or a placement year, which is an additional year that you take after you've completed your second year, so as your third year, and then you return to Durham and do your final year as your fourth year. We have a bunch of joint honors and combined honors programs to which we feed in. So there's the Bachelor in Philosophy and Politics, the Bachelor in Economics and Politics, the Bachelor in Philosophy, Politics and Economics, and then the combined Social Science Bachelor, which allows you to pick and choose from up to 3 different departments, 2 modules each year. So this is a very flexible degree that allows you, for example, to combine anthropology with politics and archaeology, or politics with law and geography, or whatever you kind of want. It is also a somewhat more challenging degree than the others, because we don't coordinate everything between departments because there's just too much variation in what students take. So students will have to navigate the different departments and the program regulations, while here everything is kind of coordinated and streamlined and made very clear, which is why I will be able to kind of point out things. The typical offers, etc., are there. I think the key metric that is really important that I think you should care about is the offer rate that we have. Roughly 50% of students that apply to us get an offer, right? And then it's up to you to reject us, right? So that's, I think, the key metric that you want to focus on. These are the international equivalencies. So if you're not a UK student that does A-levels, etc., then you will have one of these different things. If you're unclear about admissions, and I'll say that a little bit later, this is a dark art that I don't understand much about as an academic because it's centralized and done by the university. There's an admissions desk in the chemistry building and in the Kalman Learning Center, which will be able to answer all your questions specific to your case. So, how is the program structured in a nutshell? It's 3 years, unless you take the year abroad, etc. There's going to be a foundation year, a consolidation year, and a specialization year. Right? So in the first year, you will be given the foundations of your subject area and the research methods, and then you'll get to choose a bunch of other modules. The second year, we're going to consolidate that expertise with starting you off with a research project that you will do in a small group in a guided setting, and some specialization in subject areas. And then in the third year, you will have the dissertation, and then some really specialized modules in different streams that I'll talk you through in just a second. In every case, and I'll not repeat that when I go through the programs, but in every case, you can take up to 1 module outside of SCIA in a different department. So you could take, for example, French, and you could start off with beginner's French in the first year, intermediate French the second year, advanced French, and you do that with the modern language department. Or you take 1 module with the human geographers, or with the anthropologists or sociologists, etc. Right? So you always have that option in addition. So, what do our programs look like? The way that we structure our programs is they're structured by levels. Level 1, 2, 3, that's our first year, second year, third year. And then we teach it within certain subject streams. We have 4 subject streams. The first one is political theory. That focuses on normative questions. Things like, what is the right thing to do? How can we legitimize power? How is state power legitimized? So the normative questions of what is the good and right thing and just thing to do. Then there is the comparative politics stream, which is the empirical equivalency, which focuses on how are things? How do people make choices? How do institutions work? How do they structure political discourse, etc.? And on the IR side, we have the IR theory and history stream and the international political economy stream. And the IR theory and history has the combination of like a historical focus of how has the international system evolved, how has international law evolved over time, but also a normative element that links to the political theory element, and the international political economy tries to kind of teach the intersection between international politics and international economics, but also domestic economics, and how these systems kind of interact to produce certain outcomes, disparities, inequalities, different life experiences for different type of people. Right? So in dark blue in this program, which is the BA Politics program, are the modules that you are required to take. Right? So in your first year, you have to take the political theory introduction, the introduction to comparative politics and democratic political systems, and the research methods module. So you have to take 6 in total every year. That gives you 4. So you get to choose 2 from here, or 1 in another department, which I'll stop mentioning now. In the second year, you'll have to take the research project. And there will always be research project options that are political theory options, or comparative politics options, or IR options, right? And then for this program, you have to either take Foundations of Western Political Thought or Analytical Politics, right? So you are starting to kind of specialize into the empirical stream of doing empirical data, qualitative and quantitative data-oriented research, or you're doing a philosophical approach to politics. And then you get to choose if you take one of those up to 4 of these other options, right? And they range from more area-focused stuff, as politics of Pacific Asia, European politics, American politics, British politics, to more philosophy options and an IPE option. Then once you've done that, you get to your dissertation. That's the only required module in the third year. That's a double module. It will count for 40 credits rather than just 20, which means that you then get to choose 4 options. And there are too many different options here to list them, because the way these modules work in the third year is that they're based on the research expertise of a member of staff. So they change quite frequently of what is offered, because it's based on their current research. But we make sure that we have 2 offers in each stream every year, right? What will be exactly on offer we can't tell, but you will always have at least 2 options in political theory, 2 in comparative, 2 in IR, and 2 in IPE. The IR program is pretty much the same in reverse, right? So you will have the IR things that you'll need to take, and you can choose which of the politics to take. You have the research project and dissertation in your second and third year. And in this case, you will have to take either international theory or international organization. Again, a more theory-focused or a more empirical-focused module. You can also take both, obviously. And IR and politics, it's the mixture of the 2, right? If you're unsure at this point whether you want to specialize in IR or you want to specialize in politics, then you can take this option. Here, you will have to take the Intro to IR, Comparative and Political Theory, as well as the Methods module, then Research Project and Dissertation. And here, you'll have to either take one of the 2 semi-core options in politics and one of the 2 in IR. So in this particular program, you have 1 choice less in your second year, because you are required to take this or this or this or this, and this or this, right? So that's how this works. The red arrows, by the way, I haven't mentioned them now because they're not relevant for our single honours degree, but they become very relevant for the joint honours degree. Those are prerequisites. So in order to take analytical politics, you must have taken the methods module in the first year. In order to do the dissertation, you must have taken the research project. Given that they're core modules in every case of our single honour program, that doesn't really matter. That you automatically satisfy that prerequisite. Now for the joint honours program, the PPE program, you don't have streams, but you will have different departments, right? So you have philosophy, politics, and economics, right? And you'll have to take 2 modules each in the first year, and then you get some more choices in the second and third year, right? Philosophy and economics are very prescriptive, what you need to take in your first year. I know that these are hard to read, so I'll read them out. Ethics and values, and knowledge and reality. And economics is principles of economics and economic methods, right? We are a bit nicer. We give you a choice. You have to take 2 of those modules, but you can choose what you want to do. Then you have to take at least 1 in philosophy, at least 1 in economics of those choices. And in our case, you have to take at least 1 of those as well. If you want to keep your option open of writing a dissertation in politics, you will have to take the research project. If you want to keep your option open of writing a dissertation in economics, you will have to take the econometrics course, right? Philosophy doesn't have any of these requirements, but they do have a requirement that if you write their dissertation with them, you'll have to take another level 3 philosophy module in parallel to that dissertation. Right, so in this program, you will write your dissertation only in one of those 3 things. You don't have to write 3 dissertations. You'll be glad to know. Then politics and economics, very same thing again. Economics kind of sets your 3 modules. You get to choose 3 from our offer. Again, you have to kind of make sure that you satisfy the prerequisites depending on where you want to write your dissertation, what options you want to hold open on this. And then finally, philosophy and politics. Again, philosophy is quite strict, gives you not that much choice. We give you a bit more choice, but we do have 1 prerequisite, which is the introduction to political theory in the first year. And again, if you want to hold the option open of doing analytical politics, you will have to take the methods module. And if you want to do the the dissertation, you will have to take the research project. Right? So that's how these degree programs, in essence, work. And there's a variety of choices that come with them. The combined honors I obviously can't graphically represent because there's just too many options that students can take. So how does it actually work? What does a module look like, and what is covered in these things, right? So this is an overview of the Introduction to Comparative Politics module, which is a first year mandatory module for politics and IR in politics. So we have 3 terms in Durham. We teach in 2 of them, and then there is an exam term, right? So these are the 8 lectures for term 1, and these are the 8 lectures for term 2, right? And you can see that at the beginning we kind of start by focusing on the system level. What is the state? What is the democratic system? How does the democratic system come about? What are the determinants of it? How do democratic transitions work? What is an autocracy? Does it really matter whether you're in a democracy or autocracy? How do they actually differ, and do they have different performance indicators? And then we kind of focus on the politics within the system, right? But again, remain comparative by looking at different electoral systems across democratic countries. We look at who governs in different countries, and not only what the formal political power is in these countries, but also what the informal mechanisms are that matter for governance. We look at representation, how representation changes, how representation is done in different institutional configurations. We look at political parties, how they emerge, why they matter. So the organizations, not the college parties. Yes?
What's the split between like modern politics and like historical politics, like when you're studying parties, that kind of thing?
So most of the politics side and comparative politics is focused on post-1945. But we will, when we talk about something like an organization, go back of like, okay, why did they even emerge? If you read the American Constitution, you will find that Madison tells you that factions, which is the old word for parties, are from the devil, We should not allow them. They're horrible. And yet, we have them. So how do they come about if people didn't like them in the 19th century, right? So, UK politics, 19th century, the beginning, there were no parties whatsoever. When you get to 1883, 1885, it's all about party politics, right? So how did that come about, right? In order to understand what these organizations do and what their historical legacy are. But it's not going to be purely that, right? We're going to talk about mostly things that we observe in the real world today, but also, of course, the past informs what we see today. So then we'll talk about political participation, who turns out to vote, and how do they decide who to vote for, etc., and so forth. Right. So there's 16 lectures. Across those 16 lectures, every 2 weeks there will be a seminar. Right. Seminar are small group teaching up to a maximum of 15 students. And to give you an idea of what a seminar kind of covers, I've taken one that would be here right after lecture 4, which has the topic of modernization theory. Right. So you would be asked to do 3 readings for this seminar, right? And in essence, it kind of shows you what the academic debate about a subject has been, from like the person that kind of started the debate over to what the current state of research knowledge on this is, right? And modernization is the basic idea that as you become wealthy over time, you become more democratic, right? So this graph shows you the gross national product per capita, right? In 1985 per capita US dollar term, because the figure comes from Przeworski and Lemunji, right? And then the proportion of democracies in each of those categories, right? And as you can see, when you're quite poor as a country, you're very unlikely to be a democracy, but when you're quite wealthy, you're almost always going to be a democracy. There's some wealthy countries, of course, that we know that aren't democracies, Singapore and China, for example, right? So his argument was, as your economy develops and you have specific labor diversity and labor specification, and you move from an agrarian society to an industrial society and to a service society, you need people to have more and more skills in order to be productive in the economy. And these people will demand more freedom and more liberties, which eventually will lead towards pressures against the autocratic elites and will open up the country and you will get a democracy. Right? So it all kind of happens. All we need to do is make sure that every country develops in the world and we'll have a world full of democracies. That was the conventional wisdom from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in the 1990s, Przeworski and Lemunji said, well, actually, there might be a different process going on here. Right? Rather than development creating or causing democratization, maybe it's just you randomly flip between those two different systems, right? For some reason, sometimes a revolution happens and you become democratic, and then another coup happens and you become autocratic again, and so forth. But at a certain level of wealth, democracy begins to stick. So once you've transitioned and you're sufficiently wealthy, then for some reason, and they specify what those different reasons are in detail, the autocratic elites don't have an interest to revert back again, right? And so actually you get the same pattern, but with a very different theoretical story behind it, which of course has very different theoretical implications and policy implications, etc. Along come Asimov and Robinson in the first part of the 21st century that say, well, actually this is all nice and fine, but it's a bit weird. All the stories and the theory are about changes within the country over time, but all the evidence that is presented is differences between countries. And we know that countries are very different, etc. And so is this evidence actually really speaking to the theory and giving a good test of that theory? And so they use modern statistical techniques to parse apart the between differences to the within differences and see whether actually within a country these types of processes that are proposed actually happen. And what they find is that once you kind of gotten rid of all the socioeconomic and cultural and historical differences of countries, there isn't any kind of within relationship between economic performance or development and the likelihood of being a democracy. Right? And so what we'll do in the seminar is we'll talk about what the different arguments are, where they exactly differ, what the implications of those are, how well the arguments are crafted, what the empirical evidence is that they bring to bear on them, what the quality of the evidence are, what the downsides are, whether the critiques that they make against each other are really well founded, etc., to have a deeper understanding of what modernization theory means today, and to what extent we should still consider that to be like a good basis on which we make judgments and decisions. Yeah? So that's an example of how teaching works, right? And if you're taking A-level politics, you will have noticed that's very different from A-level politics. So, global opportunities. All of our programs come with either, come with year abroad, placement years, and then there's also global internships and international volunteering. I'll talk a lot less about the global internships and international volunteering. Global internships are things that students can do over the summer through the enterprise office at the university, and international volunteering is something that happens within the colleges but also happens over the summer and therefore doesn't have an impact on the program structure. What does matter is study abroad and placement year, because it adds an additional year to your degree programs. So if you're planning to do a year abroad, then there are two ways you can do it: through the Turing scheme, which is the follow-up scheme from the Erasmus scheme, when the UK was still a part of the EU, and then the international partnerships. The Turing scheme, just like the Erasmus scheme, is set up where each department has partner departments at other universities. So that will differ by each department that you're going to be visiting. For example, we have partners in France, Germany, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, Spain, and Italy, etc., where you could study for a year. And then there are the international partners, which are the same for all departments within Durham, because that scheme is run by the international office and is university-wide. So there are universities, as you can see, in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Japan, Canada, the US, etc. You don't need to decide when you apply whether you want to do a year abroad or a placement year. You just apply for a program. In the second year, when you return in October, there will be a talk where you will be informed of how this works, and there will be an international studies fair where you can speak to students that have gone abroad, and you can speak to the administrators that run these aspects, etc. And then you can apply, and if you get offers, you can decide to go or you can decide not to go. Yes? So I'll be really honest that we don't know the very latest percentages, because everything is affected by COVID. So nobody wanted to do a year abroad in their bedroom. So I can't tell you exactly what the latest things are, and I think even this year it was still kind of impacted by that to some extent. But before COVID, so 2018-19, roughly about 20% of our students did a year abroad. So that's an option that you can take or not take. It doesn't count towards your Durham degree classification. We only take into account the modules and the marks that you get with us, right? But what we will do is we will check that you've actually taken a full set of courses and you've passed those courses. So if you're thinking of, I'll just go to Australia and enjoy the beach, that's not going to work. Unless you're really smart and you don't really have to attend any courses to pass the credits. That's possible. A placement year is where you can take a year working in industry. The placement has to be at least 40 weeks. You can either take one of the things that we offer, or you can sort out your own placement. It can be a bunch of shorter ones, up to 3 different placements, but it will need to be approved by the university enterprise office so that the placement is relevant to your degree and satisfies the safeguarding principles that the university has. You will need to pass all your level 2 modules, and you'll need to have a good attendance record for seminars in level 1 and 2, otherwise we will not allow you to go on placement years. The options that we have are still quite limited, because when we started this it was 1920, and then nobody wanted to do a placement in their bedroom. And nobody was kind of contemplating the idea of offering placements. And so we've only really been able to kind of start approaching placement providers, etc. this year. We are working with the Department for Education, and we're also working with the Scottish Parliament, and we're trying to get some more placements with NGOs and international government organizations. But it's slow going because everybody is still kind of recovering and figuring out how things post-COVID might actually work. So that's the placement year option. So what can you do after you've done your SKIA degree? Those are some of the things that I know our students have gone into. You'll see that some of them are in the civil service, some of them are with NGOs, some of them are with IOs. You'll see that some of them are in journalism, political research, financial industries, etc. But I did put at the end literally anything, because I'm always surprised when students come back to me of what they've actually done. I have a student that graduated 2 years from today that is now working for Vogue. She studied IR. I didn't quite understand how that links, but she convinced me that actually her study was quite useful for this, and that most of it was kind of driven by the option of being in colleges and heavily involved in the fashion shows that went on in college, etc. And interestingly enough, I have a dissertation student that is writing her dissertation with me next year that also wants to go into fashion, and said, like, can I write a dissertation on fashion and politics, etc. And of course, there's lots of stuff that you can do there, like, how do politicians decide how they dress? Do they dress differently for different options? How do the way politicians dress and appear affect what voters feel about them, etc. Right? To what extent is there a gender disparity in that regard, etc. So there's lots of stuff that one can research, and that allows you to tailor your dissertation towards the employment that you're trying to get when you leave. As said, for me, the key thing about any kind of program is, is it actually worth it, and do people actually afterwards get a job? So I don't mind the ranking that much, but I mind if our numbers kind of start dropping massively. So admissions, these are the things that we consider, or that the admissions office considers. Since 2 years ago, it's been centralized, so we don't really see anything in the departments anymore, and we don't make any decisions. We provide guidance to the admissions office on what they should consider, but how it actually works and etc., that's kind of a dark art that I don't have access to. So if you have specific questions, especially if it's like really detailed to something that you've taken, etc., or the specific degrees that you're getting from secondary school, then you really ought to ask the admissions office. I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have, but with the caveat of not knowing it, and as you might guess from my accent, not knowing the English school system either. My kids are 8 and 6, so I'm still learning primary school, how that works. College allocation and preferences. You're no longer asked to put in the college preference when you apply through the UCAS forms. You'll just put in Durham City. The college is not linked to a degree project, to your degree subject, so they're mixed, right? So you'll be with people in colleges that, study physics, chemistry, biology, sociology, geography, archaeology, and so forth. Before we allocate a college, you'll be asked to put up a ranking of which college you want to go. The website has lots of information and videos about the different colleges. Some are very formal and old school. Some are really modern. Some focus more on sports, other more on arts. There's a lot of variety there. And you'll be allocated a college around May. If you're interested in the different colleges and how they differ, then there's a college hub in the Teaching and Learning Center. If you walk through St. Mary's College, right across the road here, and you go down the hill, the first big building that you'll see, that's the Teaching and Learning Hub, where you can get that information. So, Max.
Right, you'll be pleased to know that the graphs are over. There are no more charts to be seen. Who am I and why you should listen to me? I'm a final year student, final out of 3 in politics and IR. My DIS is on the board if either of you, well, any of you are bored stiff by that. I was at South College, and I've been at Durham long enough to know the things about housing, cost of living, getting a job in the city, which you might want to know. Now, I think it's helpful, or at least helpful, to give my experience on the big adjustments to being a politics undergraduate. Firstly, politics is a very low contact hours course relative to certain other degrees at the university. This leads to a lot of independence and a lot of learning. You will make mistakes, it will be inconvenient, but you have to learn by doing, and that's kind of what first year is about. So that comes with the territory, be prepared for it. Now, you might think you know how to ask questions. You are wrong. You have never encountered university lecturers. They are incredibly knowledgeable people with a wealth and depth of knowledge on their subjects that you cannot fathom. This makes them very difficult to get a straight and clear answer out of. So you do need to know how to tailor your questions, how to make follow-up questions to get what you want out of them. So that is something you need to pick up by doing. That's a big adjustment, especially compared to school. Now, reading and research. If you take an A-level or anything at school, the mark scheme is very cut and dry. There are assessment criteria on the syllabus that you need to hit. Now, SKIA uses one mark scheme for all work, be it a group project, essay, report, critical bibliography, whatever, all one mark scheme. So that makes it very nebulous and very up to your lecturers. So you need to know not only how to deal with your lecturer, figure out what is going to interest them, but also how to read and research in such a way where you can write an interesting bit of work which is going to get you top marks. Now, the learning to love Google Scholar bit, there is everything under the sun, pretty much, asterisk, on that one, on Google Scholar, which makes it a fantastic research tool for the breadth of reading and research that you do have to adjust to as opposed to school based on how things are marked at SKIA. Now, why I liked Durham and why I liked SKIA. This is, the bog standard stuff that they expect me to tell you, so I'm sorry if this is a bit hackneyed. But the lecturers, they are not only really intelligent and qualified people, some of them are really interesting. If you come to the departmental coffee mornings, you'll hear about one of the lecturers who's campaigning to ban killer robots and another who went to prison for doing his research. They're really interesting people. Get to know them. Get to know who they invite to speak, because fantastic. Won't get it anywhere else. Now, the interdisciplinary nature of the course, you've heard about it structurally, but on a personal level, if you are in a classroom with people who are, let's say, liberal arts students or combined honours in social science, they're going to bring an entirely different perspective to a seminar, which is just, it adds a lot. I really appreciate it, and I think you should too. Now, the colleges and the culture, that's a thing to be experienced, and college culture has been a big part of why I came to Durham, and also the whole extracurricular frameworks, college teams, fashion shows, all these things. They're quite unique to Durham, and personally I appreciate it a lot. Finally, the last thing I'll say to you, look outside. Come on, it's beautiful. National Heritage Site at the castle and the cathedral. It's a lovely city. That's why I would say you should come here.